Hey, Bills Mafia. We know there's only one topic every day. All Bills, all the time. And now Matt Bovee and Sal Capaccio are going really deep, talking Bills all year long, because it's always game day in Buffalo.
All right, night number 2 of the 2025 NFL Draft is in the books. Actually, a couple hours earlier than last night. It's just shy of midnight here on Friday night at One Bills Drive in the media room.
Yeah, I think I can catch the 12:20 flight back to Grand Island from Orchard Park. And if I do that, then I land just about at 1 o'clock, which is exponentially earlier than last night. So I will take that as a huge win.
The Bills, 3 picks, all 3 on defense. If you've listened to both of us, I know on the radio, I've said consistently over the last few months, I expected all 3 picks to be on defense. You never know what happens once you start getting a little bit later. That's exactly what they did. I know you were in the same boat, that maybe they could go on offense, but probably looking on the defensive side. So that being said, not a surprise they went heavy on defense. Any surprises on how they went about it or who they took?
No, not at all. I mean, I think this would have been the betting favorite combination before the draft even started, that it was going to be cornerback, defensive tackle, edge rusher, and that's what we saw. I just don't think we knew the order, right? And I don't even know if the Bills knew the order. I think that if there was a defensive tackle there was something in Detroit today. Tyleik Williams apparently said the Bills told him that if he was there, they were going to take him. I don't know if I 100% believe that or whatever it is. So it always felt like it was going to be these 3 positions. I think the outliers would have potentially been safety, or as I was standing on the metaphorical soapbox about a wide receiver, that did not happen. I think they addressed both of those positions probably on day 3 of the draft on Saturday.
All right, so let's recap here. The Bills, they go into round 2. They'd taken Maxwell Harrison. We talked about that last night. We know that in round 1. They go into round 2, and they trade up, actually. They had 56 and 62. They traded up from 56 to 41, giving up 62, but moving into the 3rd round. And with that pick 41, they take TJ Sanders, a defensive tackle from South Carolina. Apparently, they felt that there was just not enough ramp up or room anymore after that, and they had to go get their guy because they wanted to get a defensive tackle. The surprise here for me, like Harrison was a surprise only in the regard he's not a true like tackling corner, and they like that, but I love all his other attributes, and I understand why they took him. Sanders isn't a true 1 technique. He's more of a 3 technique. He's still a little bit smaller compared to what I thought they would go after at that position.
Yeah, it was funny because Harrison was a little bit of a sway off of what they normally like, where Sanders was very much kind of what they like with the defensive tackle, a defensive lineman. He's not huge. He's just under 300 pounds, 297. He said he likes to float around kind of between 300 and 305. He's 6'4", so he's certainly got the height there. He's not Alfred Collins, right? Like, he is not just a big run-stuffing 1 technique. So I understand that's probably the type that some Bills fans wanted. But, you know, Brandon came up here about an hour ago, Brandon Bean, he was like, he's just a really good football player. And very early in the process, I remember talking to a couple people about, hey, who are the guys the Bills should be interested in? And TJ Sanders' name was kind of first floated out there. And then a couple weeks ago, we talked to Jordan Reed from ESPN, one of their draft guys, and he was like, I think the Bills might take TJ Sanders with the 30th overall pick. And I was like, whoa. Like, that's aggressive, right? It does not feel like when you do the mocks that that's a guy who would be available late, or that you would want to take late in the 1st round. I mean, he wasn't crazy off. It was 11 picks later that they traded up to get him. So clearly they value him.
Another thing Brandon Bean said, it was really interesting about this. He said, it's harder to find a rush interior player, a guy that can penetrate, get sacks. And TJ Sanders had 4.5 sacks each of the last 2 years. I think it's been 4.5, total of 8, maybe total of 9. But he said it's harder to find that than it is to find a 2-down nose tackle, which would be the true 1 technique. Then he said you can get those guys sometimes in free agency. All right, maybe they wanted Tyleik Williams. I had them drafting Tyleik Williams in my mock. It didn't happen. So now you're like, all right, the value isn't there. If we can get him, we can. If not, let's go the free agent route. What do you expect them to do at the 1 technique? Because he also said, as of right now, Dwayne Carter's the backup to Daquan Jones. Matt, I got to be honest with you. I don't think we go into the season like that.
No.
I think maybe it's Jordan Phillips, but it's somebody or a facsimile of Jordan Phillips. It's somebody like that on the veteran free agent market.
I think that you can find that player on day 3 of the draft. Now, I don't know exactly what will be out there by the time that they pick. We'll talk about this in a little bit. They have 7 picks now tomorrow. It's the same amount that they had going into the weekend. So they still have 10 total picks, 7 picks on day 3. I don't think they make all 7, but I also think there's other positions that they probably need to address. But I could absolutely, they have three fifth-round picks, right? 3 fifth-round picks, like 3 fifth-round picks. Thank you, Elena. They could absolutely use one of those on a just traditional one technique defensive tackle who has probably a pretty good chance of making the Bills roster.
Yeah, we'll see how it all shakes out at defensive tackle. And then on the edge, they go with a guy that a lot of people also mocked the Bills and said he'd be a really good fit for them. Mm-hmm. That is Landon Jackson. This guy's kind of a facsimile of Greg Rousseau. He's super tall. He's super long, 6'6", 280 pounds or so. I guess it fluctuates a little bit either way. I mean, this guy's a very long, athletic dude who's going to step in here and I think compete right away to be on this roster.
Yeah. Oh, he's definitely going to be on the roster,
yeah,
right?
I guess getting playing time, I should say.
For sure. And we have a graphic that we'll bring up in a little bit. And it's about the snap counts for the Bills defensive linemen from last season. And it's crazy because after Greg Rousseau, I was just going to say, just do it now. After Greg Rousseau and AJ Epinesa, look at the line if you're watching on the video, all the way on the right-hand side. So Greg Rousseau played 67% of snaps last season. AJ Epinesa played 55. After that, the guy who got the most percentage of snaps on the Bills defensive line was Dawon Smoot at 29%. They needed guys who could get onto the field and play. So now what I'm assuming it'll look like is once again, Greg Rousseau will probably be the guy who gets them. We're just talking about edge rushers here, by the way. We're not talking about defensive tackles. So I would imagine Greg Rousseau leads the way. AJ Epinesa is probably right there. But I could also see a world where Landon Jackson and AJ Epinesa are probably getting pretty similar amounts of workload. Different players, of course. But I think if you take Greg Rousseau off the field, the easy thing to do is put Landon Jackson on the field because of the profile.
Yeah, take a look at that list we're looking at right now on your screen. If you don't see it, that's because you should be on video watching us at Sal Sports on YouTube. But we'll just walk through it if you don't see it. Greg Rousseau, number 1. AJ Epinesa, number 2. After that, most of those guys are not on the roster anymore. Dawon Smoot, Von Miller, Casey Toohill. Then you get to Javon Solomon, who really was mostly a special teams player when he played. And I've always said that it really comes down to maybe what they feel about how they approach edge in this draft. Might come down to what they feel about Javon Solomon. Mm-hmm. And I think he probably remains kind of a spot duty type of player, a guy that plays special teams. We'll see. Kingsley Jonathan no longer around. Cameron Klein no longer around. They did add Joey Bosa and they did add Michael Hoyt, but he's suspended 6 games. So you still have some room here for someone to come in right away.
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting, right? Like their Bills' actions tell us what they thought about their defensive line last season and that it just simply was not good enough, right? What are the moves and the notable moves that they've made? Oh, wow, we're so small on the video side right there. So first moves they make when free agency opens up, right? Michael Hoyt. Well, the first move they made, what was the first move that they made? Oh, it was Josh Palmer. Josh Palmer was the first move they made. After that, Michael Hoyt they bring in. Larry Ogunjobi they bring in. Joey Bosa they bring in. Then they draft today TJ Sanders. They draft Landon Jackson. 5 new guys who are going to be on the Bills roster on the defensive line. This is a complete overhaul because quite simply, the defensive line was not even close to good enough last year. So I think that they needed to make, all of these changes and then they should get some benefit from it.
So Brandon Beane talked a little bit about trying to get a little bit younger on the defensive side. We know they do have some guys going into the final year of their deals. AJ Epinesa would be one. Joey Bosa signed a 1-year deal. Matt Milano's going into the final year of his deal. They have 1-year deal for Tre'Davious White, 1-year deal for Dane Jackson. So this is not just short term. It's also maybe long term what they're trying to do with the defense here.
Oh yeah, definitely. Right. Like you figure that Sanders is going to be a kind of, I don't want to say a foundational piece because that's a little bit too aggressive, but he is going to be a piece that they need for the next 4 to 5 years, right? On this 4 years on a cheap contract. And then the same thing probably for Landon Jackson, a little bit of a similar role to what we saw with AJ Epinesa at the absolute beginning of his career. They needed to get younger. They needed to get more explosive. And I think that's what these players are bringing. The thing about Landon Jackson is it feels like he's got a pretty high floor, right? Like I don't really think there's a world where this guy comes in and doesn't at least play some good snaps for you. I don't know if he can be a complete game wrecker. Like I feel like Sanders has the potential to make a more immediate and impactful kind of like difference in a game, but I still think Landon Jackson can give you some good snaps.
Let me add too, Daquan Jones and Larry Ogunjobi, both final year of their deals. Larry Ogunjobi, 1-year deal. Daquan Jones has 1 year left. All right. It's interesting you bring this up about the high floor because remember a couple of weeks ago, we did the exercise or last week with Brandon Beane and Brett Veach and the Bills and the Chiefs draft. And what was our takeaway? That the Bills have a higher floor. They've drafted better depth, guys that they can develop, guys that can come in and they can play. but they haven't drafted the higher ceiling guys. The Chiefs might have some misses, but they got some guys who really have kind of hit it out of the park. That being said, you said that Jackson has a high floor. Do you think the Bills, we both felt they had to go and take swings, get guys with the highest possible ceilings? Did they do that in this draft?
I think with Hairston, they definitely did.
I agree.
Right? I think that was actually a little bit different. I think I loved the way that you put it yesterday about how you talked about how they're, raising the floor of the room, but they also now have the potential to have a true difference maker. Like they added elite speed that they did not have on this roster. So I think with Hairston, they did. I think with Sanders, they mostly did. Landon Jackson is the most Billsy pick ever. Like I told Dom Tibbetts probably 15 minutes before they
Hi, Dom.
15 minutes before they drafted Landon Jackson, I was like, Dom, start writing a web story that the Bills are drafting Landon Jackson. It was not a surprise to anybody because we all saw it coming. It was such a Billsy pick. And he did great work.
I say the biggest question is, did he get the web story done? Did he do it?
Oh, yeah. It was cooking. Yeah,
Your sports director here gives you a nice vote of confidence and that you got the web story done right there. All right, so the Bills, they go corner, defensive tackle, edge. They go all three on defense. All three from the SEC, by the way. I don't think it's by design, but I don't think it's also coincidental that you wind up getting guys who play in the best conference in college football. I wrote about that at WGR550.com. What else is there still to do as we head now into Saturday, rounds 4 through 7?
Wide receiver, absolutely. Safety, I feel like makes sense. Xavier Watts got taken kind of right at the end of day 2. I still feel like he would have been a fun player for the Bills to add. There's other safeties out there.
Let's be honest, though. Anything that happens now, we're talking backups, right? We're talking guys there's no starting spots open on this team.
Well, what if
other than guys who maybe have been drafted and you could put them in starting spots?
What if they draft a punter?
I guess you could say that.
Starter.
Maybe. I think you'd still have to beat out the guys, but you're right. Maybe there's a question mark there. They have Brad Robbins and Jake Camardo, who's probably going to be the guy. I'm talking about the 22, the offense, the defense. Right now, I don't think there's a question who's starting if you assume that the starter is going to come out of Hairston, White, or Jackson at corner. That's it.
Yeah, but I don't think Sanders or Jackson are starters. I mean, they're going to get snaps, right?
But but no matter who it is, whoever's starting week 1 at defensive tackle is on this roster right now.
Yes.
Not tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Right. For sure. I mean, unless you find a diamond in the rough, which actually, no, a one tech. If they go out and they find a true, pure one technique defensive tackle right now, if Dwayne Carter is the best option you have at one tackle, I mean,
he's not though, because Daquan Jones is going to be the starter.
That's what I mean. So it's like a rotational guy.
For a rotational
guy. So yeah, I think a one tack would probably be something that I would target. The easy answer for me is that I think the Bills need to add a wide receiver with their first pick on day 3. And I think that it needs to be somebody who can stretch the field. There is a couple names that are interesting out there. The one at the top of the list is Jalen Royals from Utah State. Straight line speed. I think he would make a lot of sense. I love Tez Johnson from Oregon. I don't think that's the type of player the Bills would take. Feels very Troy Franklin from last year, but I think that is a skill set that this team should be looking for. I think that they need some pure speed.
My apologies for not knowing. Was Isaiah Bond drafted? I don't think so.
Isaiah Bond was not drafted.
I'd be okay with that. I mean, that's I know he didn't break the record, but that's still the kind of player you're talking about.
Yeah, but you got the off the field stuff that happened during the draft process. So the Bills would have to be comfortable with that. Now, I don't know if they would be. I'm sure different teams have them on have him on their board. Some teams don't. I mean, if the Bills are comfortable with that or feel like I don't know.
By the way, there was a allegation on social media against Maxwell Hairston, and Brandon Beam was asked about that in the press conference, and he said that it was very much investigated. The Bills were very comfortable saying that it just wasn't true, and they were very good with going forward.
Yeah, I mean, Beam was pretty adamant with his answer and pretty, so clearly they feel like they did the due diligence there, but that was something that was out there, which is kind of the natural way of going off the Isaiah Bond conversation. I don't know all of the details there. He would make sense. It's interesting because he is a player whose stock has certainly slipped. A couple weeks ago, it was, hey, this guy's probably a day 2 pick. A month and a half ago, it was like, hey, this guy might sneak into the first round. So I know he didn't have as fast of a 40 as people thought he might, or didn't compete with Xavier Worthy or anything like that. But yeah, he's another one of those kind of option guys that are still available.
What do you make of Trey Amos not getting picked very early in this draft?
that like a lot. And once again, everybody is entitled to every opinion that you want here. But that was probably the most common theme we heard in the last 24 hours of, oh, I think they would have drafted Trey Amos, or oh, I think they should have drafted Trey Amos. Well, like, look at the slide, right? Almost a full another round later, he ends up getting taken. So maybe he ends up being the better player. That's totally fair. Trey Amos to me is a little bit more of like a Landon Jackson pick of like, hey, he's a safer pick.
Yep.
Maybe he doesn't have as high of a ceiling, but the floor is much higher. I give them credit for taking the swing on Hairston. Maybe Amos is the better player. I don't know, but I feel really confident that Hairston would not have been around for another round like Amos was.
And then, of course, and by the way, on Amos, you also never know. It could be a medical. We don't know. There could be a lot of things go along with that. That's what happened with Will Johnson. Will Johnson ultimately does get selected by the Arizona Cardinals, but obviously he's a guy that fell out. We know why, because of the health concerns, speaking of cornerbacks. And then we can't talk about the 2025 NFL draft without talking about Shedeur Sanders and the fact that he has not been picked as we sit here unbelievably on Friday night heading into Saturday, but yet the likes of obviously Jackson Dart, we knew that. The kid, Shock, right? Who
Shaw, yeah.
right? Shock, who went?
Yeah.
You know, and then, I mean, Dylan Gabriel went to the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
John Scott from NBC Channel 2 in the back of the room he follows the Cleveland Browns, grew up a Browns fan. I get to sit kind of between John and Josh Reed from CBS Channel 4. Yeah. They both grew up watching the Browns, and they could only kind of laugh at their hometown team and some of the decisions they were making.
The Dylan Gabriel thing, I don't know.
And again, Vic Carucci. That's right. Vic worked for the Browns. Yeah. He was there for many years. Vic, what do you think about? There you go. Vic, what we should get. Vic, what do you think about Shedeur not going to the Browns?
Well, I don't know that it's as much a Browns issue as it is a Sanders thing.
Yes, I agree.
This draft may not be remembered for anything except that.
It's amazing. Vic, I made a joke on social media you'll appreciate. Some of the younger people might not as much. I said Shedeur Sanders may be the first player ever to apply for the supplemental draft in between actual NFL rounds. Special circumstance.
If nothing else, it is given a lot of fodder for conversation.
Yes.
That's going to go on for a long time.
I personally liked the comment from Catherine Fitzgerald of the Buffalo News about how the Bills took the first Sanders of the draft.
Yes, that's right. Very good.
Yeah.
Excellent. That is right. I mean, who would have thought? I said at this point, I would not be surprised if Kyle McCord actually gets drafted before Shedeur Sanders.
Here's my thing, though. At this point, why are you drafting him? Like, I'm sure somebody is going to take a flyer. It's either going to be the most humbling thing that has ever probably happened to this guy, or he's going to just be miserable in whatever situation. I mean, look at all the teams that have passed on him, right? The Browns passed on him. The Steelers have passed on him a bunch of times. The Saints passed on him. The Raiders passed on him a bunch of times. I just don't know where the natural landing spot is anymore. And I don't know if a team that has an established quarterback wants to be drafting a guy like Shedeur Sanders to be a backup quarterback, because that feels like there's a lot that, like,
100%.
Like the Bills, I don't want to like pigeonhole myself here. I don't think there is a world where the Bills would draft Shedeur Sanders to be Josh Allen's backup.
No, there's way too much of a distraction that comes with him. But I'm going to give you another element here. It's not just him. Yes, we all hear about his dad, and you have to have that as being comfortable with his dad being around and whatever. Not just from an overbearing dad standpoint, but I would say this. His dad's a coach, and his dad's got a name. And there were rumors he was going to coach in the NFL. And if you are a team taking him, you better have a coach that's on firm footing, that believes, that he's safe. Because, Matt, I'll tell you what, you take Shedeur Sanders and things start to go south, everybody in that media market is calling for Deion Sanders to take over as head coach of that team.
Not in Buffalo. They're not.
That's right. I know that.
Yeah,
but I said that's because we know here he'd be safe. But I mean, if it happened in New York, can you imagine? He goes to the Giants, they start to slide. Everybody in the media and fans are calling for Brian Dable to be removed and replace him with Deion Sanders.
He's going to get drafted at some point. It's just, I really don't know the situation now. I mean, I would still guess maybe one of the teams that was tied to him early on, but after being passed so many times, I don't know how this ends smoothly for him.
No, I agree. It's really a fascinating storyline, as the great Vic Carucci just pointed out a moment ago, that is becoming the story of the 2025 NFL draft.
Can I give a couple guys to keep an eye on for day
Of course, I think people would love that.
So we'll start with positions, right? I said wide receiver. I feel like that makes sense. I think safety makes a lot of sense. My buddy Joe Biscaglia from The Athletic says Billy Bowman is a name to keep an eye on for the Bills from Oklahoma, the safety there. And then I also think they probably need like a pass blocking tight end, right? They need somebody to kind of spell what Quentin Morris was for the Bills. They don't have that currently on their roster. They have Zach Davidson, but Zach Davidson isn't a blocking tight end. So I feel like that'll probably be one of the ways that they use a pick. My anticipation tomorrow, they have 7 picks. Let's say they make 5, right? Let's just assume. 1 technique, defensive tackle, wide receiver, punter, blocking tight end, and then dealer's choice, but probably an offensive lineman just for the sake of drafting an offensive lineman. So that's kind of how I see tomorrow going.
Let me ask you this. If a player gets taken in the 4th round or 5th round at wide receiver, does that player automatically you think he's a better prospect chance to make this team than Tyrell Shavers?
Yes, for sure.
I wouldn't say for sure. I think Tyrell Shavers was pretty close right there making it last year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, only by the investment might say that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if the player would, though.
Okay, well, let's look at who's the last wide receiver they took in the 4th round.
Gabe Davis.
Right.
Yes. How about 6th? How far would you have to get? 6th round?
Yeah, 6th round gets.
Okay, let me get there then. I guess the point I'm making is
Isaiah Hodgins territory.
Okay. I think that the point I'm making is, 4th or 5th, you're probably right. The point I'm making is they do have a couple of guys on their roster that once you get to a certain point, you're like, that guy is going to be better than anybody we drafted at this point anyway.
Okay, bad comparison, but what I immediately thought of was, obviously I'm a hockey guy and I love to talk about hockey. When you reach a certain age in hockey, you are so much less likely to get called up because there's always somebody younger with more upside who could kind of do a similar type or similar caliber production. If we're having a conversation about a 4th or 5th round wide receiver with untapped potential, or you don't know what they are, that guy is going to get more opportunities than Tyrell Shavers, just because at this point, I think they know what Tyrell Shavers is. And I don't want to be like knocking Tyrell Shavers or anything. I think if you needed him to play some snaps for you, you could probably get some production out of it. But if you're drafting a guy in the 4th round, he is on the team next year, like unequivocally, and he is going to be further on the depth chart than he probably is going to be the 5th guy in the depth chart behind Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, Josh Palmer, Curtis Samuel. I feel like those guys are your kind of top 4. Yep. If you draft a player in the 4th round, that guy becomes 5. And then after that, it's Laviska Shenault, Jalen Virgil, and KJ Hamler, Tyrell Shavers.
You're right. I like the way you put that. I think 4th or 5th was probably a bad example for me. I think once you get to a certain point, though, I don't know if you start adding there. All right, last one for the Bills. We know this is a deep running back class. We've had this discussion, but look at a couple of the names here.
Yes.
Cam Scadaboo is still on the board.
Yeah.
Trevor Etienne is still on the board.
Yeah.
Do the Bills take a running back at all on Saturday?
No. I could see it happening, but I'm not going to bet on it.
At this point, we're past the point of taking one because of the James Cook situation, right?
Sure, yeah. If they take anybody, my favorite option of the late ones is Devin Neal from Kansas. It has nothing to do with his ability as a football player and everything to do with I won a Heisman with him in NCAA football this past year because he was just, you put that guy, you put him out wide, poof. I used the Kansas Jayhawks because of Lance Leipold. So, yeah, Devin Neal, come home.
I think I like Scadaboo. Just like saying his name. He's fun to watch, too, by the way. All right. Last thing for you, Matt Bove. Did you know before tonight exactly what a micro doodle was?
Yeah, Landon Jackson, a guy who's 6'6" from Texas, having a micro golden doodle was not what I anticipated. Now
he called it a micro doodle, but you're right. I looked up. There's only one kind. It's a micro golden doodle.
So I have a cockapoo, which is half Cocker Spaniel, half poodle. We have a cockapoo because my wife has allergies and cockapoos do not shed. Same thing as golden doodles. So micro golden doodle is just a smaller golden doodle that does not shed. So they are a very, I guess, desirable breed for a lot of people because of that. Like if you have allergies, you can have one in your home and it not imagine like my dog does not shed. Like how crazy is that? It's pretty cool. So
maybe that's why Landon Jackson has one. He's already married. He's 22 years old.
Yeah,
he's married. He's coming into Buffalo already as a family man.
Yeah, for sure. So micro golden doodle. Hey, golden doodles are adorable. I like small dogs. I like dogs that you can just kind of scoop up and hang out with on the couch and they just like kind of nestle themselves in between you. That said, though, he could have been like Beagle, and I would have been like, yeah, that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's certain people you can match a dog to, and if I looked at Landon Jackson, I wouldn't go Micro Golden Doodle.
No, me neither. But
Like, Great Dane.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually expecting Boxer, Rottweiler, or something like that.
Sure, yeah, he's just a small dog guy.
All right, what do we got coming up? What do you got going on Channel 7 and then back here tomorrow and all that?
Yeah, so tomorrow we'll be back out here. I'll give a little plug. So we do our Monday show, Leading the Charge, during the fall, and it usually ends at the end of the season. We actually are going to start it back up relatively soon, this upcoming Monday. So the Monday after the draft, we're going to start it back up, and we're going to kind of extend it into training camp just because it feels like it's a way. The way we've taken the show is it is very comments driven. So you can comment during the show and we can answer the questions live. It's like almost radio meets podcast meets television. So we're actually going to be starting that up again on Monday night. So if you're available on a Monday night, watch us online or watch us on television, I guess.
I love it. And of course, you should be watching us here on the Sal Sports YouTube page. The first night that we did this, when we started recording, we had over 15,000 viewers, which is amazing. And we want to keep that going, obviously. And you can go back and watch that. Our thoughts from night number 1. Here's night number 2. We're going to be doing this again over the weekend. We'll give you our full wrap on what the Bills did, what we think they still need to do as far as the offseason is concerned. Don't forget to subscribe to us on audio, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you pod. Throw us a nice review, a like, and all those nice things.
Good luck to Sean Dolak. Whatever happens, good luck to Sean Dolak on day 3 of the draft. Whether he's drafted or as a priority free agent, very, very cool journey for a West Seneca native. So we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Same thing I'll say for Matt Jaworski, who went to St. Francis High School and then went to Fordham and was the Patriot League Defensive Player of the Year at Fordham.
Okay.
And he has talked to teams, including the Buffalo Bills. He's an edge player. But Matt Jaworski, who grew up, I believe, in Hamburg, went to St. Francis, and then Fordham, Patriot League Defensive Player of the Year, Sean Dolak, West Seneca, UB, of course. Good luck to both of them. And, of course, make sure you're subscribed to us at Matt_Bove, at Sal Sports. Make sure you're now you're following us and subscribe to my subscriber service as well on Twitter as well, because we got a lot of new exclusive Bills content I'm putting out there just for subscribers.
Have a great night, everybody.
Bye-bye.